I thought it'd be fun to make a video about the new archetypes for the up-and-coming DLC, The Lord of Nothing, for Wrath of the Righteous. Owlcat is like the gift that keeps on giving, because these are some of the coolest archetypes I've seen to date. There are going to be some 15 total new archetypes that all follow a theme of gloom and cold, and I personally love any archetype with a heavy thematic element, especially when it comes to death and darkness and gloom and cold. So let's launch into it. Now, Owlcat has given us a sneak preview of the first 8 of these, and the other 7 will be made known sometime soon. So we don't have any technical information on them, but based on what they presented so far, they do seem really cool. So first up is the Shaman archetype, the Prophet of Pestilence. This is a shaman who has bound their soul to Apollyon, one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, the semi-divine entities that rule in Abaddon. Their area of influence is plague, decay, and rot, and they lavish their gifts upon their follower. This archetype's main ability is the uniquely customizable Plague of Abaddon hex. The shaman can enhance it by weakening their victims, so their suffering feeds the spirit contained within the shaman's body. Over time, or draw too near the shaman, may find their bodies and minds infected, only to fall to the merciless spells of the prophet, who revels in their torment. This archetype also gains several new spells related to its essence. The most significant of these is Living Plague. The shaman summons a sea of insects that devours everything in his path, and which infects and destroys all living things. Enemies who fall under the influence of this ability disgorge new parts of the swarm from their own bodies, which pounce on their prey. Devour your enemies on your path to greatness. Now, this is the one that I think is exceptionally cool for a number of reasons. We know there are going to be new mythic abilities that allow you to make poison and disease viable against enemies that are normally immune, in much the same way certain elements can be made. So the idea of a disease-wielding shaman is just badass. I also like the association with the Four Horsemen and the Plane of Abaddon, which frankly does not get talked about too much compared to the Abyss. And as I suggested before, the Prophet of Pestilence seems very thematic. What is the one mythic path that screams this archetype? Obviously the swarm that devours everything. But I could also see a devotee of Urgathoa being appropriate, as she also rules over disease and has relations with the Four Horsemen, in addition to the undead, and she lives on the Plane of Abaddon. And if you use mods like I do, for Universal Spell Merge, this shaman could be a very potent lich indeed. So either Swarm or Lich for this one. The other mythics for it don't make much sense, as I'm sure there's alignment restrictions, can't be a good aligned character, and being devoted to a being in Abaddon would preclude you from being too involved in the Abyss, I would guess. But I could definitely see a very potent neutral evil shaman coming out of this one, devoted to the end of everything. And the next one is the Tortured Crusader. This is a favorite archetype of our lead game designer, Andrei Sverkunov. And no wonder, as the Tortured Crusader is able to endure every hardship and setback without buckling under the onslaught. We've slightly reworked its abilities, and this archetype now gets bonus fighter feats and is strengthened when allies lose all their health points in battle. And the new All is Darkness ability allows the Tortured Crusader to use Smite Evil on all enemies, regardless of alignment. Anyone who stands in your way stands against your principles and must be brought to justice. Eradicate evil in every corner of Golarion, for nothing can stop you now. Now on paper this seems very strong. Fighter feats a universal smite evil, and increased strength when your allies lose their own health. And being a paladin, you'll obviously have to be lawful good, but we don't know the trade-offs. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of paladins in general, even though I acknowledge that they're very powerful with the right build. But oftentimes the base paladin seems to be the best one, so we'll just have to wait and see. It definitely doesn't invoke, at least to me, the same kind of thematic feeling that the Prophet of Pestilence gives me, but I'm open-minded, and we'll just have to see what happens with it. It could be very good, but it's impossible to say for now. Next one up is the Cleric Separatist. The Separatist is a cleric of an unorthodox faith. Other believers likely consider them heretics. Nevertheless, they receive divine support, including for their unconventional beliefs. This archetype's main ability is to take a domain that your deity does not have in exchange for weakening the abilities of that domain. We've added a small expansion to the game specifically for these occasions, the Ice and Undead subdomains. We spent a great deal of time and effort to create this archetype, as we had to make a copy of all the files of the cleric domains, more than 450 files and 70 abilities, modify them, and test them several times. Thank you to the Q&A department for all the hard work. Now with this one, I'm not entirely sure what to think, because normally I like clerics on the whole, and domains are just super powerful, which is why people tend to play them, or at least have one in the party. Specifically, the one archetype I like the most is the Ecli, or the Ecclesiathurge, which gains access to 2 domains as well as additional abilities. And so it kind of strikes me as a bit odd if you're going to weaken domain abilities, as you could just choose a different archetype or a different deity without the disadvantages. But again, this might just be a question of implementation rather than anything. I don't know. It does sound interesting on paper at the very least, although I wouldn't say it's particularly thematic, so let's just keep an open mind on this one. The next one, the Winter Child, seems pretty interesting. Almost as interesting in my opinion as the Prophet of Pestilence, so let's see what they have to say. Winter Child is an archetype based on the concept of the leader of the pack of hungry predators with an affinity for blizzards. Their unique ability is a bond with a blizzard elemental that accompanies them on their travels and protects its master. As the Winter Child's level increases, the bond strengthens, which allows the elemental to grow stronger and develop its abilities. By using the blizzard to slow enemies, for instance, it can strengthen its allies' weapons, allowing them to deal additional cold damage. At the pinnacle of development, the druid becomes an otherworldly being, a master of frost and blizzard. Turn Sithid's frozen realm to your advantage, and unleash the fury of cold on your enemies. Now, the power to bond with a blizzard elemental seems very cool on the face of it, and in addition to that, it might work very well with the prestige class Winter Witch. Again, this one is very thematic, which I like a lot, which is something I'll always praise, and it also tells us about who we are up against in the DLC. Sithud, a nascent demon lord, demoted from the status of being a proper demon lord, and replaced by Kochtichi. One thing I have to wonder about is the Blizzard Elemental, because summons in general are not that great on anything core or higher in terms of difficulty. So the question is the Blizzard Elemental more akin to an animal companion, in which case it could be very good? I like the concept at the very least, so I'm curious to find out more. Would definitely consider playing this one. Next one up is the Ghost Rider, which is a Cavalier archetype. The Ghost Rider possesses the fastest, most unstoppable mount, a Phantom Horse. Despite the contradictory nature of Ghost Riders using the undead to fight evil, you can always be certain of their victory. The use of phantom animals allows them to ignore the complexities of rough terrain, and the spiritual bond between rider and phantom strengthens both. Set off on your adventure without worrying about the difficulties of the path. Your mount can withstand any hardship. Now, as we all know, animal companions are well known to be OP, and the Cavalier is generally quite good. So the real question is, what added benefits does a phantom horse bring to the table compared to a normal horse or even the other animal companions, which tend to be better overall? My first guess, apart from the terrain advantages that they mentioned, would be undead immunities, but what would be even cooler would be something like level drain as an attack, or attribute drain like a lot of undead have. That would really make it worthwhile playing. One of my favorite setups is a dip in some class such as Hunter that gives you a wider range of animals, and then going the rest of the way into Gendarme. So depending on what abilities the horse has, it could be much worse or much better, we just don't know. Very interesting concept though, to say the least. Okay, the next one is for me on the same level as the Prophet of Pestilence, the Weretouched, which is a shifter archetype. When we released the last Sarkorians DLC, many players in the comments section requested the addition of this archetype. Our Weretouch is different from the tabletop version and has 3 forms. The different forms imply different playstyles and have unique abilities that improve at higher levels. Unlike traditional lycanthropes, who are forcibly turned into a beast, the Weretouch chooses whether they will embrace their animal nature and if they will use it for good or evil. Tune in to your inner beast and put your claws to work. Again, this one is very thematic, although I'm not sure if it fits gloom and cold, but still very cool. Looks very fun. We can see a were-rat, a were-tiger, and then what I would guess is a werewolf. And in general, the shifter is a great class to begin with. It's got a lot of decent archetypes, and who knows, this one might turn out to be the best of them all, seeing as how it is going to be different from the tabletop. Personally, this is probably just based on the theme, the first shifter archetype I would play above the others, depending on their abilities, obviously. But this archetype is definitely one of the more appealing ones here, and the shifter can work with a lot of mythics, but an obvious one would be, say, Trickster or Lich, because both offer a lot of melee advantages, potentially. Next one is also potentially high up on my list, the Shadowcaster, which is a wizard archetype. When we started to develop the archetypes, we knew there would be the Shadow Plane location in the Lord of Nothing DLC. Therefore, the Shadowcaster was a fitting addition. After all, Shadowcasters wield the powers of the Shadow Plane, control the shadows, and summon powerful shadow creatures. Mysterious and enigmatic wizards and masters of illusion, they have dedicated their lives to the study and manipulation of dark magic. They are able to bend reality to their will and deceive the most astute of enemies. We've also added the ability to transform into the shadow form itself, thus gaining many bonuses, and without losing the ability to cast sorcery. No longer will you have to fear the shadows, for they will serve only you. Now at the outset, Wizards and Pathfinder games catch a lot of flack because they can't really compete with Sorcerers spell for spell, but I still like them, and this one seems really cool. This archetype I think would make an excellent Lich, given the spellbook merge and immersion and undeath. But the real question is about the summons, as well as the ability to transform into a shadow. As I've already stated, summons tend to be a lot weaker on higher difficulties. If that's fixed, there could be a very potent archetype because of the Shadow's ability to drain attributes, and it would be awesome turning them against the enemy for once. I'm definitely interested in this one, and I'm definitely looking forward to its implementation. And the last one on this list is the Witch archetype, the Hag of Gona. This witch gains their powers by making an alliance with a Night Hag. Not only are they able to do evil deeds for the glory of their patroness, they can even summon her as an ally and full witch companion at high levels. Developing the Hag of Gona wasn't easy, as we really like the narrative of the archetype's tabletop version, but the abilities seem rather weak for our game setting. Therefore, Valeria Kormanovsky, and my Russian pronunciation is terrible, sorry about that, the game developer developing this archetype almost completely redesigned it, adding a unique summon companion in the form of a Night Hag at level 12. The summon Night Hag has no access to high-level spells, but the available spells can be used an unlimited number of times. Explore every corner of Golarion with the help of your loyal and very wicked grandmother. So this one's received a lot of reworks apparently, which could make it very cool, with its association with the evil goddess Gona, the patroness of hags and hatred. And like some of these other archetypes, the strength of this one will really depend on how effective the Summon Night Hag is. Based on the preliminary summary, I'm leaning against it, as unlimited low-level spells just don't seem to be very impactful or useful over the long run, but I could be wrong about that. But it definitely is thematic, and I'm open to changing my mind. This is one of those that could be good for the Lich for sure, or maybe even the Swarm. Not sure, but really, we just have to see how this all shakes out with these companions. Are the Shadows going to be powerful? Is the Night Hag going to be powerful? How is the Phantom Horse Steed going to be? Etc, etc. Now, apparently the other 7 archetypes will be released soon in terms of their previews, and I plan on covering them as well. And I'm looking forward to the DLC's release, although I'll probably have to wait a while. Given all the mods I use, they will obviously need to be updated. Of the 8 thus far revealed, I have to say my top ones are the Prophet of Pestilence, the Shadowcaster, the Weretouched, and the Winter Child, in that order. And the other ones aren't as interesting to me, to be perfectly honest. There's a real danger that this is going to trigger my restartitis, so I hope I can hold the line and stick with one archetype. But let me know in the comment section which ones you like the most, and I will check you out later. Looking forward to seeing your comments and hearing what you have to say. As always, thank you for watching. If you're interested in RPGs and talking about RPGs, you can join my Discord server. And thank you for tuning in. If you like my content, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Hit the bell icon to be informed of my videos, and I'll check you out next time. Take care.